Well, the rain is falling lightly, so we're going to be delayed. This year it's been a big celebration of our friend Howie Rose, looking spiffy in his old three-piece suit back in the day. Howie's been a fixture on Mets broadcasts since 1987. We were fortunate enough to go into the Mets Hall of Fame together a few years ago. And of course, he is the master of ceremonies for all the events here at Citi Field. He'll be down there on Saturday with the 1986 team. And unfortunately, he has decided to pack it in after this season, but he was happy. He was nice enough to spend a few minutes with us during this rain delay.
And here's one of the reasons why.
Is there any way we can change your mind?
No. No, it's done. It's made up.
Florida calling.
Florida is beckoning. So are the alligators who are hungry for more golf balls, the trees who need to have me climbing looking for golf balls, and my wife deserves her husband whether she likes it or not.
Well, she gets a Medal of Honor.
You've been doing this for a long time.
Yeah.
You gonna miss it?
Terribly, I'm sure. You know, I don't know yet. It's kind of hard to put myself 6, 8, 12 months into the future and really have a feel for what's coming. I think I'm ready. I know in my heart that it's the right decision, but that remains to be felt, if you know what I mean.
But you will be back here for special events.
Yeah, that's the plan. Opening day, whenever that's going to be. And, you know, Hall of Fame ceremonies. If there's an old-timers event that might bring you gentlemen back into uniform.
We are officially old-timers. You have a connection to us, though, at SNY. I remember the first year. What do you remember about that trip?
What do we call it, our lost weekend?
The lost weekend, yeah.
In deference to John Lennon. I remember Gary took ill with appendicitis, right? And that happened when the Mets were at home. We were at Shea then. They played, I think, the Giants for 2 or 3 games at home before we had a long West Coast trip.
That was the lasting Village high five.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I got into trouble for thinking that was great. And people were, you know, old timers were saying, oh, you can't be doing that. But I thought that was great to engage the fans. Anyway, what I remember was that we had a lot of fun because the team kept winning and winning. And everybody likes you better when the team wins, you know?
9-1 road trip.
Is that what it was?
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Remember the chair in the dugout in
Olay
Arizona?
Solaire.
Olay Solaire.
It was like a
Needed his
folding
own
chair. Yeah. Yeah. For Madonna, right?
You know, Howie, you've been here for so long, and I'm sure you've got a multitude of moments, but what are your special moments that really, when you think back on your career here at Shea Stadium and now Citi Field, what are the ones that really stand out?
As a fan or as a broadcaster?
As a broadcaster.
Well, certainly the first time I ever interviewed you on a pregame show. That's a memory I'll cherish forever. It was
Did
right
I
after
treat you
were
okay in '87?
What's that?
Did I treat you okay in '87?
Wonderfully.
Thank you.
Are you surprised?
Oh,
that
I just
you
saw
did?
you. I said, this guy needs a little help.
Did you know that Howie broke the news of your trade on the radio before he was doing Mets pregame shows?
Oh, really? In '83?
Should I tell him the whole story?
Yeah, the whole story. Yeah, I got to
Well, all right. So I was the sports director at WHN, which was a country music station. Being the sports director at a country music station's like being the captain of a rowboat. You know, you just have only so many responsibilities. But the news director, a guy by the name of, if I remember right at that time, it was Dirk Van, got a call from somebody with the Mets who said, it was Al Harrison who called and said, get Howie out to the ballpark early tonight. We have a major trade we're going to announce. They didn't say what it was, just said, have Howie out there early. And so Dirk said to me, whenever you get the news of the trade, we'll break into our Willie Nelson programming, and you know, you take 30 seconds or a minute and just say what the trade was. So I got wind of exactly what it was, and this is, you know, probably an hour or so before the game broadcast began. I said, Mets have obtained Keith Hernandez for Neil Allen and Rick Ownby. Well, Bob Murphy, he wasn't happy because he came right up to me and he put the dreaded right hand on the left shoulder. That meant he was angry. 2 arms on the shoulders. You better find something else to do.
And
the rest
Murph's
of the
got to
night.
reach up now.
Yeah, he did. On his tiptoes.
Well, he was angry at you.
Well, I think his exact words, as I can best clean them up, was, I was under the impression that we were going to break the story on the Mets pregame show. So I started to explain. I said, well, Murph, I got a call. And Murph just turned, and Barney rubbled his way into the night. I mean, he was gone. I didn't even get a chance to explain it.
I mean, such news. The Mets fans probably thought you were spending time with Willie Nelson to make that kind of announcement.
We were tight.
You've been a part of the fabric for a long time, and you've gotten probably less acclaim than you deserve, but still plenty of acclaim over the years. But I think the postseason 2 years ago allowed people to fully appreciate you in a way that maybe they hadn't before.
Well, I appreciate that. And there's a lot of serendipity is probably the right word involved in that, because let's face it, there are a lot of people in our business who might work 20, 30, 40 years and never get the moments that we had in the postseason 2 years ago. From Lindor, that last game of the regular season or the last day of the regular season, +1, the extension because of the rainouts. But then, you had Pete's dramatic home run in Milwaukee and Lindor's grand slam here against the Phillies and a couple of others along the way that you realize, wow, I'm stepping into it here, because you don't know that those moments are going to evolve. So I consider myself very fortunate to have had the opportunity to call them and hopefully to have not screwed them up.
Howie, I always think of you as such a humble superstar behind the mic. What did it feel like when the team played your call on Pete's dramatic home run in Milwaukee? You were just on the plane, and they played it on the plane. You were sitting in your seat, and you looked so uncomfortable for a while. But after that, it just must have felt great.
Well, I think you would all agree that as broadcasters, very little makes us more uncomfortable than hearing our own voices or calls when there are people watching you or listening with you. It's a very, very sort of self-conscious experience. So we get onto the plane, and remember now, they clinched the wild card series. So there was some beverages inhaled before they even got onto the plane. So everybody's feeling pretty good. And just based on the dramatic way that ended, I think it's fair to say people were feeling more than just very good. So some people in the Mets front office conspired to put it over the PA on the plane. And whatever else you saw was that was just organic. I was trying to eat my fruit cup and stay out of the way,
Trying to have the tilapia.
Buck Showalter hated anybody that would eat fish on a plane.
Really?
Yeah, Buck thought that was the looniest thing you could ever do.
So, Howie, tell me one thing, tell the folks out there. When did you decide that you wanted to be a broadcaster, and was there anybody that you styled that you liked or patterned yourself after, but also made it your own? So.
Well, I knew almost as far back as I remember that I liked the idea of having a microphone and talking to people. You guys remember an old game show called Beat the Clock?
Yeah.
Remember Bud Collier, the game show host? Well, he had one of those, nowadays we call them the Gene Rayburn microphones, that went around your neck, and you would interview his contestants. Well, I thought that was the coolest thing I'd ever seen. I'm 3, 4, 5 years old. My dad had a Polaroid camera, and the film came on a spool that when the film was exhausted, that little black spool looked like, if you had a bit of an imagination, could be a microphone. And my mom tied a string around that spool. I would wear it around my neck and walk around interviewing people. They either thought I was insane or cute, and I don't get cute a whole lot, so we'll use insane as the process of elimination. But I knew then that I liked the idea of communicating. And Mel Allen was the first baseball broadcaster that made an impression on me. Then the next year, because I started watching baseball in '61. The next year, the Mets came into existence, and I was hooked. And I wanted to be a baseball broadcaster, but the sport that I spent way more time learning to broadcast was hockey. Marv Albert was everything to me in this business, and still is. And he was a mentor. And I'm not here today if it's not for Marv.
Wow.
No question, and that's true of most of us who grew up in that era in New York. But you came to baseball on the radio late, right? Because you had already been working at WHN and you did Mets TV for a while. You did the Mets Extra show. That's how you got started with the Mets. But the radio play-by-play for baseball is different than any other sport because you have a relationship with the audience that is unmatched. How do you go about your business, and what makes you tick as a radio broadcaster?
Well, I'm not blowing smoke because I've told you this, both of you, and I've said this to your face. I learned to become a radio baseball broadcaster the 2 years that we worked together. I would not advise somebody trying to learn to broadcast baseball at the major league level. You know, it's to me, the hardest thing in sports broadcasting is baseball on the radio. Because, again, I had sort of cut my teeth learning to broadcast hockey, but hockey's a very, as is basketball, mechanical sport. They drop the puck, you're describing the action. Once you get control of the pace of the game, you're just identifying players and describing the action. And then the whistle blows and your analyst comes in. Well, the first time I tried to practice doing a baseball game into a tape recorder at a ballpark, was at Shea Stadium, just sitting off somewhere where no one else was. Here's the pitch, swing and a miss, strike one. Now what do I do? I got nothing. I mean, I have nothing. So, you know, the thought objectively of learning to do that on the fly in the major leagues is insane. But thankfully I was able to learn to do it. And a lot of the credit to that goes to the 2 years that we worked together.
What were those years?
04 and 5, right?
Okay.
04 and 05.
And we had a blast. And I have to tell you, when Murph retired after the 03 season and they decided to put Howie with me, I was a little skeptical at first because I thought that part of what made me and Murph work was that we were so different. And that you and I, being from such similar backgrounds, that it might be too much of the same. But I tell you, we had such a blast. Those 2 years were so much fun because, you know, the only person I know who authoritatively knows more about the Mets than me is him. And he is just, it's just so much fun because he's got great sense of humor. And,
well, that's the thing.
Yeah.
We laughed,
Yeah.
you know, and to me, if you're going to do this over 162 games or however many games you might do, it's not the CBS Evening News, you know? It's a game. And I know people take it seriously. We take it seriously. It's our job. It's their job, meaning the players. But at the end of the day, it's entertainment. And I've always believed that you could blend a good, objective broadcast initiative with fun, you know, humor, sarcasm, whatever. Do we take it too far once in a while? Guilty. But we're still here.
I enjoy the sarcasm part, to tell you the truth. Okay, a question then. What do you think that you learned from Gary in those 2 years? And now you're known as a great mentor to so many young broadcasters that maybe you've passed along.
Well, let me go backwards there. First of all, I love mentoring, and I look forward to doing that when I'm fully retired. What shape that'll take, we'll see. But I love working and grooming young broadcasters. What I learned from Gary was as much from just watching as anything else, because there's a tendency sometimes when you're learning to do a game, specifically on radio, where you don't finish the call. Someone might get a base hit to drive in a run. Maybe the ball's up the alley and there's a play at the plate. But sometimes an inexperienced broadcaster won't mention where the hitter wound up. You know, you'll say he drove the run in, but did he go to second? Did he go to third? And, you know, one of the things that I've tried to do is, and, you know, Gary's so great at this, try to identify as many players on a busy play as possible. So that, let's say there's runners at first and second. Balls hit up the gap. Well, we've got a lot to track there, right? You've got to track the outfielder, the cutoff man, the runner, the hitter. And I've tried as best I can to say that, you know, whoever the outfielder is, let's just say it's, you know, Benj with a relay throw to the plate, and whoever takes the relay throw, whether it's an infielder or goes straight through, whatever, you want to identify those players as well as who the player is coming to the plate and where the hitter winds up. So, you know, there's a lot. And one of the reasons that I've this wasn't really the main reason, but one of the components to deciding to retire is that I know that maybe the synapses don't fire quite as quickly as they used to. So if I'm having trouble doing what I just described, I'll be a little more generic about it. Just say the relay throw to the plate. Never mind who made it.
Yeah.
We'll catch up to that later. But I don't want to let that go any further than where it is now.
Saturday is going to be a big day with the 86 team being celebrated, but I know that your heart goes back to the 69 team because you were the perfect age to celebrate the Mets' first championship after all the dark years, and you developed a lot of relationships with those guys. Talk a little bit about that and the progression from being a fan to being a cohort of that group.
I mean, the relationship part of it's surreal. You know, Ron Swoboda came down, excuse me. We have cough buttons here. As you can tell, my voice is shot. But anyway, Ron Swoboda came down where I live. We played golf over the winter, and a couple of other guys. Mazzilli, Hojo were friends and neighbors down there. So, but the 69 guys, those are the ones who made such an impact. And I'll tell you what they've meant to me, transcendent of baseball. The fall of 69 was what? I was in 10th grade. That was geometry. I was preoccupied with the Mets. I couldn't give a rat's tuchus about geometry until the World Series was over. But you pay a price for that.
That's right.
I couldn't figure out anything geometrically. I still can't. But I didn't pass a geometry test all year, okay? So now it comes down to the end of the year, and my teacher said, look, you're a nice guy. You show up to class. You post no bills. I'd love to pass you for the year, but you got to pass a course. So if you don't pass the Regents, you're going to have to take geometry over, either in summer school or next year. Frightening words for a teenager, right? Summer school.
Oh, you got that right.
So we got a tutor, and he taught me not necessarily to understand geometry, but how to take the test, because it basically is the same test every year. They change the numbers. I didn't understand a word of it, but I pulled an 87 on the geometry Regents. And you're going to think I'm crazy here, but the way I did that was Gil Hodges, his whole coaching staff, and 25 players were in the room with me while I was taking that Regents, because I kept telling myself in the build-up to it, they did it, I can do it.
Wow.
They proved to me that anything is possible. And this is not the slightest bit of an exaggeration. And I've tried to pass that on to my daughters and anybody else who comes along looking for any kind of advice. If you believe in yourself, the 69 Mets taught me you can achieve something.
2 miracles in 1969.
Trust me, geometry was the way bigger miracle than the Mets.
Of all your whole career, your top 5, the players that you enjoy the most, watching them play, interacting with them.
All right, present company excluded.
Yes, right.
I mean, you know how I feel about you guys, and I've said before, and I'll say it to embarrass you, because I love embarrassing people. Your glove shouldn't have said Rawlings. It should have said Stradivarius, because you didn't play first base. You performed it. And I'll tell you something, to watch somebody every day do what you did and to defend the way you did as a pitcher, I mean, I like Marcus Stroman is a guy I would pay to watch field his position. For example, you fit in that category.
Thank you.
And so, yeah, you guys made an impact on me as just having enjoyed watching you play. My all-time favorites, I mean, half the 69 team, right? Seaver, and this goes back to what Gary said, the thought that I could be 15 years old sitting in Shea Stadium watching Seaver come within 2 outs of a perfect game, the most memorable night I ever spent at Shea Stadium, and eventually become a colleague and a friend of his, it's nuts. And when I was first getting to know him a little bit, here, I'll embarrass myself, sitting in the press room at Shea Stadium with Kenny Albert, who at that time was my associate producer on Mets Extra. Seaver was in doing a game, I guess, with NBC, and he wanted to know something about the Mets that he didn't have at his fingertips, and he yells across the room, "Howie!" And I look at Kenny the same way that a teenage girl would look at her friend when the most popular guy in school calls him over or calls her over. I said to Kenny, he knows my name. So that gives you an idea of what Seaver meant to me. He's one, and I could just go on and on.
You know, I've been asked so many times, who do I really want to see? And all I can think about is who I'm going to miss. And I think Davey Johnson is the first person on that list. And you had a unique relationship with Davey because you guys did the pregame hit. If he was there, you know, he didn't always. You know, it's a little late sometimes.
No,
but
yeah.
But tell us a little bit about Davey. That
I'll
the
tell you
fans don't
everything.
know.
Anyone who ever listened to the Davey Johnson report will appreciate this because this was the man. First of all, Davey was very patient with me. You know, we would talk before I turned the tape recorder on and after the tape recorder was turned off. And I learned more about baseball, the inner workings of how a manager thinks, thanks to him, than anybody I've known in baseball over the years. And I'll never forget him for that. And thankfully, I've been able to tell him that, you know, before he passed. But anyway, just to give you an idea of what it was like working with Davey. Early in '87, you might remember Roger McDowell started the season on the disabled list, as they called it then. I think it was a hernia. He had a hernia.
Yes.
And he missed, I don't know, a month, 6 weeks, whatever it was, right? So I don't remember what the move was that Frank Cashin made to get him onto the roster, but Davey didn't like the move. So we're taping the pregame show, and I go, Davey, you're getting Roger McDowell back tonight. What's that going to mean to the bullpen? And he goes, well, Howie, Frank Cashin did a dumb thing today. Honest to goodness.
Oh.
That's what he said. So, okay, we play out the 5 minutes, turn the tape recorder off, and I look at Davey and say, you know, look, if you're a little uncomfortable with that, I've got time. We can do it again. And Davey goes, bleep no. I said that for a reason, you know. He used that show to send messages to the front office and also to fans because, you know, the fans would ride him after a game, win or lose sometimes. And he figured out in a hurry that he could sort of preemptively explain his thinking to try and ward off a little bit of the criticism that came later.
Well, Tarp's coming off the field. First pitch is going to be at 8:15. One more for you, Howie.
Yeah.
When you do your last broadcast, which I guess is the last home game of the season,
September
you thought
20th.
about what you're going to say?
No, I've purposely avoided that because I can feel it coming now as we get into the last 2 months. It's going to be emotional. I know that. I don't want to become too emotional. I've always prided myself on being able to maintain control and composure. But that's going to be the biggest challenge, you know. So I'm trying to kick that can down the road as far as possible and for as long as I can. And we'll cross that bridge in the days leading up to it. But I don't want to think too much about it now because it could overcome me.
Howie, it's been great to have you up here, and you know how I think of you like a brother, and
Same here.
everybody around here is going to miss you after this season is over, and I would urge everybody to listen while you can because
Thank
this
you.
is a very, very special person.
No, I appreciate that. And I'll miss you guys, but I should be here just enough to stay in your hair. Let's call that a deal.
Howie, get it down to about a 10 handicap. I'll come down and play.
I hope you plan on coming down about 20 years from now. 10 handicap.
The great Howie Rose. We'll have the ball game for you in just a little bit. Let that picture image linger in your mind. When we come back, Mets Yearbook 2018.